My name is Ron Laboray, and this is my hometown of Granite City. During this summer, the steel foundries that usually keep the pulse of Granite City beating were stilled. Local layoffs in the steel industry had started last fall, and the summer had promised to be long and uncertain. The shadows cast by these quieted mills crept across our blighted downtown, hiding an even quieter effort. Several local artists set out every weekend for 2 months to capture the natural beauty of an empty industrial landscape. Their intent was to find new purpose for the mills, using the empty buildings as subject matter for the painting. We also celebrated the history and potential future of the community by capturing these images in paint. So John, you're using oil paint.
Sure, yeah, this is oil. When I come out, I try to really not get too concerned about detail, but really try to capture the overall light and the atmosphere, the through color that I see in front of me. So it's not so much a matter of trying to get any particular detail or specifics, but it's really just more of an overall general impression of the light. And that is something, of course, is a real challenge. And so I think I've been painting plein air for maybe about 10 or 12 years now. I started out in watercolor, and that was a real challenge. And I took a class up to Michigan to do some painting along the Lake Michigan coast, and I knew that we were going to be doing oil. And so I took sort of a crash course in plein air oil painting that I sort of taught myself, and since that time I've really been hooked on the oil. It's a little bit more forgiving than the watercolor, and I can have a chance to go back and correct and refine things, so I find that real useful when you're out in the field painting. A real break from my studio painting. So the studio paintings are larger and perhaps are a little bit more involved or more detailed, maybe a little bit more content-oriented, so to speak. But I find that when I go out and paint plein air, the information that I gather through light, color, and space really informs my studio paintings, which are also landscapes, but they usually have like an invented element within them. So I really like to go sort of back and forth between painting outside plein air and then taking that information back and applying it to my studio, my studio oils. It's it's always sort of, when you go out painting on location, it's always sort of a hit or miss thing. I sort of use the analogy, it's sort of like fishing. These paintings are small enough, and you can do enough of them fairly quickly where, if you do a bunch of them, you might have 1 or 2 that come out, and you might have quite a few that you don't consider successes. So you throw back the bad ones, and you keep that. Once you get a keeper now and then.
How has been being down in the architecture? Has it been different than, say, other plein air outings that you've been, or do you like?
I think in general, I tend to maybe gravitate a little bit more to sort of some open, more rural landscape. So this has been a little bit different for me, but it's been really challenging and interesting. I've always been interested in, sort of the abstraction underlying paintings, and so when you get into situations where you're painting architecture, you always have to be very conscious of cropping and trying to be cognizant of the underlying abstraction, which I think is always an interesting thing.